Welcome to the One to Another podcast. My name is Joanne, and today we're going to talk about being alone after loss. As the year has started, I've heard so many people talking to me about being alone and how do they handle loneliness, and it seems to be acute with people who are going through grief. And it is amazing to me the more and more families that had loss, it seems to increase their loneliness after the first of the year. So I thought maybe we'd just talk a little bit about being alone after loss. I've talked a lot about being alone. And I certainly, if you know my story, I lost my late husband when I was 45. And I did understand something about this whole idea of loss and how do you walk through -1 in your life again. And so I wanted to think about whether the loss we're facing was sudden or expected. This interruption of life, as we call it, felt terribly overwhelming. Perhaps the biggest challenge we face after a death of a loved one, or maybe it's the loss through divorce or a loss of a child. It could be anything, losing a job. There's so many losses that we go through. And so after we've faced whatever kind of loss it is always facing the many hours of being alone. Loneliness is love to give and no one to give it to. So left on our own, we may feel lost and without the resources to face the day. We may have no idea how to begin to walk on this new empty road ahead of us. If we have family and friends, we may feel the need to lean heavily on them. Although it's interesting to me that lots of times your closest friends and your family seem to disappear after you've gone through your loss because they don't know what to do with you either, so they aren't around. Even with people regularly supporting us, we still feel very bereaved. We may feel that no one quite understands how hard it is for us to get through 24 hours a day alone. No one wants to sit amid this loneliness. If we don't have people to help us face our grief, we may have to seek grief support from a counselor, a therapist, or go to a grief class or grief group. Sometimes I found that when people are starting to walk through their grief, that they are all busy with their jobs, or maybe they've just retired, and so they maybe start working a lot of overtime, or they just don't quite know what to do. Maybe they start throwing themselves into some kind of volunteer work because they just dread coming home at night and being alone. And I've also noticed some other people start traveling. They have the means and they can travel, but when they come back to the hotel or to the ship or wherever they go, they're still alone. And a lot of times, many of us just don't have the interest or the energy to give ourselves away or add any new activities to our life at this time. So we end up watching hours of TV. Just getting up and getting dressed each morning may seem like all we can initially manage to do. Yet, that effort alone can begin to give us energy and engage us a little more in each day. I do remember one person saying to me that what they started to do just to get themselves out of bed was they started sleeping on the side of the bed where the husband or whatever slept, and that helped them start to get out of bed. Well, I can tell you that when my late husband died, I did understand why people were saying they never felt so alone in their life. You know, people tell us take care of ourselves, but we don't even know what that means. All the suggestions that follow are part of what I've learned in order to take care of myself and deal with my aloneness. And I thought I would share with you a story. There's an old story about a man who's walking around a farm when he turns the corner of a barn to discover an archer doing target practice. There are 5 targets on the side of the barn. each which is an arrow dead in the bullseye. The man turned to the archer and said, "Wow, that's really impressive. You must have put a lot of hours into getting so good that you hit every target dead in center. What's your secret?" The archer said nothing. Instead, he walks up to the barn, pulls each arrow out, drops each one into its quiver, and walks around to the other side of the barn. That side had nothing on it. No targets at all, just one small door. The archer takes an arrow, aims it for the door, and shoots. To the first man's surprise, the archer misses the door by a wide margin. But the archer doesn't seem to be upset at what surely must have been a humiliating moment for him. Instead, he picks up another arrow, but all also misses wide. Then another and another until all 5 arrows have completely missed the door, landing in random spots on the barn wall. Still not upset with this, the archer lays down the bow, walks over to the corner of the barn, picks up a small can of red paint and paintbrush, then proceeds to paint a bullseye around each arrow. I like this illustration because I think it helps us begin to discover that start shooting arrows against the barn. Do what you know you can do in the middle of your grief. You're just starting to go through this process. You don't know how to do it. And so we just pick up whatever tools we have used in our life and we start shooting the arrows. Now, if the archer in the story had shot 100 arrows instead of just 5, he and the visitor would have started to see a pattern emerging. They have noticed that when he lifts his elbow higher, the arrow would tend to drop lower, or that certain arrow curve left instead of right. After a while, because of all the tendencies of the shooter, the quality of the arrows and many of the arrows would have been clustered around a certain segment of the barn wall. Half of them might end up in just 2 or 3 general areas. So what do? You pay attention to where your arrows are clustered, then grab the brush and paint a target over the areas you've already been hitting. So if you're regularly hitting those spots by mistake, imagine how much more you'll hit them when you're aiming for them on purpose. So in the grieving process, I guess we all have 5 arrows at least in our pouch. And here we are walking through loss, having no idea how to do it. And, we've got to decide what we're going to do with the tools that we have. And so my suggestions are simple because I believe that how you begin to deal with all this aloneness is cry when you need to cry. Tears on the outside fall to the ground and slowly wash away. But tears on the inside stay in the soul, and they stay and stay and stay. And so I say, for crying out loud, cry. It's okay. Just pick up one arrow and put it against the barn wall and cry. So what if you're not meeting any target? You're at least crying. And I think it helps to distract yourself to get your mind off of your pain. And one of the ways I think distractions happen is, say, okay, you're in the living room, you sat down, you're going to watch TV, and you just think, ugh, it's so depressing. Well, get up and move. Go outside. Move around in your house. Find a different place to sit for a while. I believe that sometimes we just have to distract ourselves to get your mind off of the pain. Find something to engage you, such as going out to lunch, dinner, or movie. In other words, ask someone to join you for one of these activities. Even if you have one friend or one acquaintance or somebody that is a neighbor that you might think you could engage in doing something with you, invite them to do that. Ask someone to join you for these activities. How about calling a friend or someone from the past? I do know one man who needed to do something about distractions. And so he went into his book that he kept of all the phone numbers of his friends from way past and started calling them and saying, "What are you doing? Can I get together with you? Can we have coffee? Can we go to a movie? Can we go for a walk?" Anything that you can do from your past for someone that you remember that was kind to you or was interested in you. It has helped to call a friend from the past and maybe create a buddy system with someone you can talk with daily or regularly. Now, that's not really very easy for men. My impression of living with a husband for a long time, when he was going to make a date to go golfing or shooting or whatever it was, this is what I'd hear. "Hi, Joe. This is Ron. Are you available on Wednesday to go out to lunch? Good. See you at 12 o'clock. Bye." Now, if this was a woman, "Hi, Sally, this is Joanne. I really need to get together with you on Wednesday, and I would love to go out to lunch with you. Do you have time to go out to lunch? If you do, that'd be wonderful. Now, what are you going to wear? It's going to be maybe kind of hot today. Are you thinking about wearing a sunsuit? Or by the way, I've been doing a lot of crying lately. Is there any chance that when you come, I just need you to be really empathetic about where I am. And, if I cry, is that going to be okay with you? Because I'm feeling really sad." And the conversation goes on and on. And maybe we even talk about what kind of shoes we're going to wear. I mean, it is in detail. But so what? That's how women are. And so men and women respond differently in phone calls. And then I think it's important, if you can, to join a support group. I do have a support group that meets twice a month at the Senior Center in Oregon City, and love to invite you to come. If you're interested, you can certainly give me a call, and I can tell you we meet from 1:30 to 3, the second and fourth Thursdays of each month at the Pioneer Center. How about seek out a therapist? Or maybe in the middle of your loneliness, you want to learn something new. Who knows? Maybe you want to take a class in a subject that you never ever thought that you would ever even think about doing. But learning something new, whatever it is, just decide that you have to have an ability to think, I'll take that class. Maybe I need to learn how to walk, or maybe I need to learn how to run, or I need to learn how to do something, crochet, knitting, something where you can learn something new and be with other people, or maybe you just want to pick up an old hobby. Whatever it is, we have to begin to reach out and understand that you need to remind yourself that you can handle this life. You can be alone, and you can be happy. And I read an article that says, death is the final separation, an assault on the meaning of life itself. You feel that part of you has died too, for good reason. Maybe your wife, your husband, your closest friend, your confidant, and your lover are now gone, and you're alone and lonely. Loneliness is a part of the complex emotion of grief. You yearn for a past that cannot be revived. The part that you invested in your wife or your husband, there's no way that you can begin to be kind to yourself in that way. There's a gaping hole. And it's a testimony of what you meant to each other. These thoughts may provide guidance on your difficult journey by helping you to reach into yourself, help yourself to understand that you do need to move from sadness to healing, from helplessness to generosity. So reaching in is important. If it is up to me, it's up to me. There's no better insight into grief recovery. Take care of yourself. Maintain your health in order to cope more efficiently and effectively with your piercing loss. Make sure you have enough sleep and exercise. Everybody's always telling us that. And the hardest thing for us many times is to sleep through the night. And I hope that if that's your problem, that you maybe will take some kind of a sleeping aid to help you. Be patient, give yourself time to mourn so you can do the hard work of grief. Understand those sudden surges of fear, confusion, mental chaos. It's even normal to feel abandoned and cheated because you were left alone. You're now in limbo, having to readjust to an uncertain existence. Find time to soothe your soul. Consider the activities that once brought you peace, like I was talking about: gardening, reading, listening to music. Quiet moments of meditation and prayer may afford a soothing release from loneliness. And again, I talk about how important it is to reach out. Loneliness needs to be handled in a way where you start to reach out. One person is no person. The solitary heart has to throb with hearts of others. Reaching out to others may seem difficult when you're engulfed in your own loss. But during this time, you need other people more than ever. You need people to share your thoughts and fears, non-judgmental friends, maybe some family if you can get them to listen to you. But it's important that we talk about what's happening inside of us. And when you are in a support group, that can serve as a lifeline, helping you to form a new network of those who truly comprehend your anxieties and your frustrations. They've been there before. They understand where you are, and they may help you have the courage to face what's going on. And they're good listeners, and they may just assist you in helping you retrain your mind to new experiences. One of the best ways to reach out is to give to others in need. Now, it's hard to think about this, but think about volunteering. It can be a door opener. No, there's no one who can ever replace your loved one, but you can honor their life by taking care of yourself and reaching out to connect with others. Anguish and loneliness need not be there forever. The highest tribute to the dead is not grief, but gratitude. A Native American proverb says, "When you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced." Live your life in a manner that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. You have to think about that because it's true that we need to know that we're going to live such a life that we will do it as a tribute to the person that we've lost. I believe that it's important to understand the reaching in and reaching out. And a long time ago, Ron used to write a lot of poetry. And I found a piece of it the other day. Ron's my husband, and he called it "The Price You Pay" by Dr. Ronald Petrie. Grief is the price you pay for the ability to love. It's what you learn from tragedy with help from above. When you love someone and they die, you ask yourself, why? There is no answer that makes sense. All you can do is cry. When your heart aches and wants to break and your mind is reeling with pain, that's when you need something more in life than jewels, cars, and planes. When you look for someone to blame and your anger's out of control, you are sure you'll never love again. That's when you learn and grow. Ask for help from the one above. Grief is the price you pay for the ability to love. Being alone after loss is not easy. You can take steps towards healing.